Hi everyone, my name is Amber, welcome back to my channel. This is my January wrap up. So I read a total of 12 books in January and I might be reading a few more. I'm recording this on the 30th, so I do have a bit more time to read and I have a few more books I want to try to fit in. And because I'm not really doing much this weekend, I'm hoping I can read at least 2 of these books, which might be a bit over ambitious, but I reckon I can make at least a solid effort at these 2 and perhaps half of Stolen. So I may have to talk about these books in my February wrap up. Okay, so in terms of the books that I actually read, I do have one from December that I need to talk about because I finished it after recording my December wrap up. That one is Siri, Who Am I? This one is an adult contemporary book about a woman who doesn't know who she is. She got into an accident and she is suffering from short-term memory loss, or even long-term memory loss. She is suffering from memory loss, and so she doesn't know who she is and she has to use her phone to kind of investigate herself, and she needs to figure out why she was in this accident, why someone maybe tried to hurt her. I gave this one 3 stars, I think. I didn't really love it. I thought it was a fun read. It was very fast-paced, it was easy to get through, but I didn't really like the main character's attitude. I found her really hard to connect with. I found her to be very uptight and also very judgmental as well, particularly towards sex workers and people in that industry, particularly women in that industry, and it just wasn't a very good feminist attitude and I really didn't enjoy that. So that was bad, but I gave it 3 stars because I did enjoy reading most of it. It was just I had some problems with that, and I guess the ship was cute, so 3 stars for this one. Now on to my January books. The first one I read was The Vanishing Half. I read this on the 1st of January and I loved it. I gave this one 4.5 stars. To me, I thought this one was almost perfect. I think it could have been a bit longer and there were some things that it could have focused on a bit more. So this is about 2 sisters who are twins. They live in a small town, a very small town, which has a black community, but these black people in this town want to be light-skinned because their founder kind of instilled that attitude within the town, and it said that each generation of people in this town gets lighter and lighter because that's the ultimate goal. So obviously it tackles colorism. So these 2 twins, they run away from home and then they also get separated, and one twin pretends that she is white and doesn't talk about her history. She lies to her husband and later her family about her background, and then the other twin, she embraces her heritage basically, and she has a very dark-skinned daughter, and obviously the 2 of them have very different conversations, and I really enjoyed this one. Like I've said many times before, I really enjoy generational stories, so this one was perfect for me because it focuses first of all on the twins and then it focuses on their children, so it's talking about the cousins. I liked this one a lot, and I know this isn't a debut, but I believe this is Brit Bennett's 2nd book, and I'm really excited to read her 1st book, her debut book, because I have a very strong belief that that's also going to be fantastic, and I can't wait to read anything that Brit Bennett comes out with in the future, especially if it's kind of historical, literary, generational fiction, because I do really get along with that. I can't remember if I said I gave this one 4 stars. I then read and also reviewed on my channel The Girls I've Been by Tess Sharp. This is a YA thriller. I gave this one 4 stars. It's about a girl called Nora who was raised by a con artist who is her mother, and her mother conned men for a living, and she also got her daughter Nora involved, and now Nora has kind of escaped that life and is living with her sister Lee, but it all comes back to her when the bank that Nora and her friends are in is robbed, and Nora has to use kind of her past skills and things that she's learned along the way to get out of this awful situation. I really liked this one. I'm really glad that Tess Sharp has come back to YA, particularly YA thrillers. She writes bisexual women really well, and I love the relationships in this one. Like I said, I've done a whole full review, so if you want to know more then just go and check that out. But the relationships in this one were probably my favourite part. Nora is best friends with her ex called Wes, who is a guy, and she is currently with a girlfriend called Isabel. I've forgotten her name. Anyway, she currently has a girlfriend as well, and all 3 of them are really good friends, which I really appreciated. I really liked that there was no rivalry there. It was just a really lovely friendship. I then did a reread because I've been trying to do more rereads recently, and also I'm trying to read this whole series again before the final book comes out, and that is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This is the 1st book in her Wayfarer series. The Wayfarer series is ending in February, and I have an advanced reader's copy, but I'm trying to make my way through the entire series again before the 4th one comes out and before I have to read it. So this one is about a woman called Rosemary who is employed to work on a spaceship called the Wayfarer, and the crew of this spaceship put tunnels into space, and by doing this means that people can fast travel from one place to another, except because they're the ones who were originally tunneling, it takes them a lot longer. The plot doesn't really matter all that much. This is mostly a story of found family and friendship and acceptance, and it's just really, really lovely. There are so many different species, alien species in this book that have opinions and relationships and feelings that could relate to real life things, and I honestly adore this series so much. I gave this one 5 stars when I first read it. I gave it 5 stars when I read it now. So this was my first 5-star read of the year. I would highly recommend picking this one up. Even if you're not all that into sci-fi, I think this would be a really good gateway book because it's really casual sci-fi. You don't really need to know much science going into it. And the main thing I love about this is the relationships. I then read Hold Back the Stars, which my friend Justine gave to me. This one is another sci-fi book, except it's a bit more romantic than I was probably expecting. So this has been likened to Romeo and Juliet in space. It's about 2 people who immediately in the first chapter get stuck in space. I think their tether from their spaceship or whatever comes off and they are floating, kind of like in Gravity. So they're struggling to figure out a way to get back to their ship to survive, and then there are also flashbacks to when they first met and their journey leading up to this point. So I really enjoyed the flashbacks and also the space part, but I didn't really necessarily enjoy the way it all worked together, and I didn't also love the relationships. So because the romance was such a big part of this book, it was a bit of a struggle to get through, and I only gave this one 3 stars, maybe 3.5 stars, because it just wasn't as fast-paced as I was expecting. And then also the ending probably causes some controversy just because it's very different to what people are used to. I didn't mind the ending once I knew what was going on. I thought it was quite an interesting way of doing things, but because I didn't really care for the characters, I didn't really care all that much about the ending. So yeah, it was an average book. I didn't adore it, but it was good. I then read This Is Not the Jess Show. This is coming out in February, beginning of February I think, and this one is about a girl called Jess who is living in the 90s, and then all of a sudden one day an iPhone falls from her friend's pocket, and obviously iPhones haven't been invented yet, so Jess doesn't know what this contraption is, and then people start acting really, really weird. I would liken this to The Truman Show. The blurb says that, so that's not a spoiler. I was expecting a bit more from this one, to be honest. I was expecting it to be a bit more thrilling, but it was definitely enjoyable and fast-paced. So I read this in probably a couple of hours, to be honest, because it was so easy to get through. And I also learned that it's the first in a series as well, which I'm not really sure how that's going to go, but I did enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars again, I think. I can never remember my star ratings at the end of the month. So I didn't have any major problems with it. I quite liked the ship, the romantic relationship in it, but it wasn't anything special for me. I then read a library book, and I also finished off a series that I had been reading for ages. That is A Girl Called Shameless. This is the sequel to the exact opposite of OK, which I gave 5 stars back in the day, and I gave this one 3. So I don't know if I've outgrown this series now, but I don't think that's really the case. I think this just wasn't a very strong sequel. The exact opposite of OK is about a girl called Izzy who is caught on camera making out with a guy, politician's son, on a bench, and this gets into the news, and her nude photos get leaked and a website is created that's basically slut shaming her, and she's dealing with that in the first book, and in this one she's kind of dealing with a similar thing, and also the same thing or a similar thing happens to another teenage girl. So this is about Izzy and her friends trying to kind of right the wrongs and tell their politicians to do something about it. So I thought this one was okay, if a little bit boring and repetitive, especially after quickly recapping the first one. I thought they dealt with similar things. I don't think this necessarily needed to be a duology, but I did enjoy it. There was nothing wrong with it. I enjoyed how feminist it was. There's also some disability rep in there, but I can't say that this was anything outstanding, so I only gave it 3 stars. I read Here and Now and Then by Mike Chen. This is an adult sci-fi about a time traveler who gets stuck in the 90s, and then he kind of builds a life for himself there. Someone actually comes to get him from the future and take him back to where he belongs. So I enjoyed this one. It was actually quite fast-paced. It's quite a short book. It was really easy to read. There wasn't too much science in there for a sci-fi, which was good because I wasn't necessarily trying to figure out the mechanics of time travel. I just wanted a fun time travel adventure. So I really liked the relationships in this one as well. Actually, this being a theme this month. The main character has a daughter back in the past, and he spends a lot of time trying to look after her from the future where he's originally from. So I really enjoyed that aspect. I do think it could have gotten a bit more in depth. There could have been a bit more time travel in there, but as a first book, like a debut novel, I think this was quite a solid one, and it was a lot of fun to read. Another reread I did was Bindi Babes, which is a middle grade book. It's one of my childhood favourites, and I really enjoyed this one. I didn't realise when I was younger, but this is by the author of Bend It Like Beckham, and it's about 3 siblings called Jazz, Amber and Gina, I think. They're Indian and they're from Britain, and they're having a mostly great time at school and things. Their dad kind of isn't around that much, so he's kind of letting them do what they want. And then their auntie comes to stay, and she thinks that these girls need to be controlled, disciplined, looked after even. So the girls obviously don't like her all that much because they find her very overbearing. And then it's kind of about them trying to get rid of their auntie while also realizing that maybe things aren't okay at home after all. It's a really quick book. I really enjoyed it. I read it in a couple of hours. I remember really enjoying it when I was younger, and it was just as kind of snarky and funny as it was back then. I do think that if people were to read it nowadays, they'd probably find the main characters are a bit insufferable because they definitely love themselves, but I personally admired that confidence in like 12, 13 and 14-year-olds. I thought it was great. So I gave this one 4 stars. I read Fat Chance Charlie Vega, which is a YA debut that's coming out in February. This one is about a girl called Charlie who is fat, and she has a really poor relationship with her mother because her mother used to be fat and has now lost weight and now seems to be obsessed with Charlie losing weight as well, and she's not accepting at all of her daughter's body and what her daughter wants to do with her body either. I found that part of the book very difficult to read personally. There was also a lot of fat shaming and bullying in there as well, so I would be careful if you're sensitive to that, but I think it was a really solid debut. It was a really fun YA contemporary, and there were also some really cute moments as well, and again the friendship in this one was really sweet. I gave this one 3 stars. I then read another 5-star book, which was also a debut that came out on the 19th of January, and that's called Shit by Angie Hockman. This one is adult romance, and I don't normally give adult romances 5 stars, but this one was fantastic. So this is about a woman, I can't remember their names, but this one's about a woman who is working for a travel agency who run cruises, and she's kind of doing their marketing, and she works with a guy called Graham, and they're both kind of vying for the same management position, and their boss sends them on a cruise together so that they can, first of all, I guess, fight it out with one another and prove which one of them is going to do a better marketing campaign, and also hopefully stop this rivalry. So they go on this cruise to the Los Galapagos Islands, and they do some tours there. And first of all, I loved it because of the travel element. I thought this was a lovely read, and it would be perfect to read kind of on the beach during a warm sunny day if you have those in your country, which I'm not sure I do anymore. And then the romance was also lovely as well. So Graham, at the start you think he's going to be a bit of a dick because that's how the main character perceives him, but actually he's a sweetheart, and it's honestly the sweetest romance. The main character is very kind of hardened and kind of like girl boss vibes, but eventually she realizes that maybe that's not exactly the correct way to be, and she shouldn't judge people without knowing them. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It had really great character development, it had a lot of girl power in there, and then the author's note made me cry because it talks about conservationism and ecotourism, which are both things that I'm quite passionate about. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. Can't believe that I'm doing that to a romance book, but here we are. The next book I read is another reread that I gave 5 stars to. That is A Closed and Common Orbit. This one is obviously the second book in the Wayfarers series. It follows a couple of side characters from the first book. This one is also told in a bit of a different format, so it's told in flashbacks, which follow a girl called Jane who is 10, and she is kind of tasked with cleaning off scrap by some robots called mothers. One day something blows a hole in the factory door and she sees the outside world and realizes that the world is a lot bigger than this factory. So then it follows her, and then it also follows Sidra, who is a character from the first book, but I don't want to spoil the first book for you, so I'm not going to tell you who exactly she is. So I really enjoyed this one, gave it 5 stars. This one was less emotional upon a reread, but it was still definitely a lot more, I don't know, powerful I think than The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, although I love them both equally. I do think this one is stronger in terms of the kind of more structured plot and also the character development throughout, because I think The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet sometimes feels a bit like a bunch of short stories kind of mushed together, whereas this one definitely has more of a structure, and I just love the characters in this. Finally, my final, or what might be my final read for January, is Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. So this one is about 2 best friends called Tully and Kate. So they meet in the 70s, and then it follows them throughout their lives up until they're like 50, 60 I think. So it follows them along through high school, university, through their careers, through starting families, and I really enjoyed it. So this is my first Kristen Hanna book, and I do have a whole vlog about this one coming up soon. It just depends how quickly I read her other books. But I thought this was really good. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I haven't really heard much about Firefly Lane, but I do know that it's being turned into a TV show or a film on Netflix. Netflix, so I'm going to have to check that out, even though it doesn't really have the most appealing cast attributed to it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It was fast-paced, it was enjoyable to read. I got very attached to it, and then towards the end, a certain storyline that I was definitely expecting came up, and I just sobbed through the last like 50-60 pages because it just got very emotional, and I was very attached to these characters by that point, so anything that they were going through I was also feeling. So 4 stars for this one. Kristin Hannah has definitely left an impact on me, and this kind of put me on a bit of a slump. I haven't read any books in 3 days now because I finished this and cried a lot. So like I said, I might read those 3 books that I showed you at the beginning of this video by the end of the month, but I'll talk about those in my next wrap up. These are the books that I read in January. It was a fantastic reading month. I didn't read anything below 3 stars, which I am so happy with. I don't know what my average rating for the month would be, probably 4, considering how many 5-star reads I had. I was going to tell you about my stats in this video as well, just very briefly, because I will be doing a whole quarterly stats video towards the end of March, but I just wanted to quickly tell you what's been going on. So I read 12 books and I DNF'd 3 books. You can see those here. I don't really have much to say about them, I just couldn't finish them. 3 of the books that I read were YA, 1 was middle grade, and 7 were adults. I had 5 3-star ratings, 4 4-star ratings, and 3 5-star ratings. Genres, I had history, sci-fi, thriller, contemporary, romance, and literary. I read the most sci-fi and contemporary. I think I might be missing a book here. I had 3 rereads, 5 new to me authors, and 5 debuts. And going along with my TBR challenge, I read 6 of the books that were previously on my TBR that weren't rereads, and so I was able to buy 2 books, which I'm really pleased with. I think this challenge is going really well so far. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know how your month went in the comments below, and I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye.